Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Robin Binkley, a professional real estate investor. She's a co founder of Real Equity Investment Partners, and she aspires to assist women in learning about financial education, money management. Her greatest desire for women is to help them gain financial independence and freedom. Welcome
Mhm.
to the show, Robin.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate being here this morning.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people
Hmm.
across the world will be benefiting. Especially, you'll be talking about a lot of things for the US audience. And I'm sure a lot of people will benefit down there. So,
Hmm.
firstly, to understand from you, Robin, is that, a lot of people, especially women, find it difficult to put their money into the right places exactly to understand these things. And you are a professional real estate investor, and
Hmm.
you talk about investment in real estate. So how does real estate investment and financial freedom they gel together? How does this work, especially from a women's perspective, where a lot of women, we don't find them investing in finance, especially in the real estate sector?
Hmm. Hmm. So, to kind of address all of that very quickly, I would just like to share that I am a mother of three adult women. And so, women are in my heart, and I want to mentor women by nature of being a mother. Flash forward into my professional business life, I did not start out investing in real estate. I ran nursing homes for 24 years. And as I morphed out of that business, we had always, my husband and I, invested in the stock market. And as we began to see that that was really not going to be a way to grow true wealth, we started investing in commercial properties and storage facilities. And then began in the last couple of years attending a lot of educational seminars, whether that's been virtual or in person. And so education is huge. And what I began to see in some of the mastermind groups that I began being a part of is that, and the live in-person events, is that women were just such a small minority represented. It might be 70% men, 30% women of all age brackets, young to middle age. And I'm 54 and maybe even a little bit older than me. And so one of my business partners and I, quite frankly, a year ago, created a podcast called Ladies Kicking Assets, where our aspirations were to educate women on basic financial matters. And so, in having a lot of conversations with women, just in general, I learned that most women, not all women, their husbands or significant others or a spouse may be the primary person who invests money, grows wealth beyond a 401k, and some of the traditional methodologies. And I thought to myself, I do not want my adult female daughters depending on someone else to make these decisions. They're brilliant, bright women who can multitask and do a lot of things. Heck, we can learn these things too. And that's really where the passion birthed from, if you will, and focusing on that market. So I work to really, my message is broad spectrum. It doesn't matter if you're a female or a male. The information is the same, but my heart, my passion is really directed towards women and young women. But it can be women at any level of spectrum, because wealth is a personal idea. What is wealth to you may not be what wealth is to me. And so you have to kind of identify within yourself, What is it that you are aspiring to grow? That's wealth, you know? And so that's really the essence of it. Teaching basics like a personal financial statement, diversity in assets, understanding your portfolio. These are just some basic ideas. And then, yesterday I was talking with my daughter. My youngest daughter is 20, and we were looking at some social media analytics, quite honestly, and we were looking at the fact that the younger population between the ages of 25 to 35 are really homing in strongly on a lot of my messages. And so how do we teach young people, not just women, but young people, how to get started? What do they do? They can barely afford a home for themselves. So how do they grow wealth? These are the things that matter to me. It's about legacy, making that mark, imprinting, and then that moving forward. So very important in this day and age.
Absolutely, absolutely, Robin. So, for a woman, how should they get started into this? Should they think about planning their financial independence along with their husbands if they are married, or should they plan in an individualistic manner? How do they know exactly where their money will grow better? How do they understand those difficult terms that keeps on getting thrown when they are listening to any business broadcast or anything that they read? How do you be away from those shiny objects and put your money into a safe but still in a place where it can grow well? How did you learn for yourself, and now you are a co-founder of this real
Mhm.
equity investment partners and a professional real estate investor, even though you started in healthcare administration?
Yes. So I would say one of the first things you've got to do is really be in touch with what are your goals for your life, your 3, 5, 10-year goals for yourself personally, your health, your mindset, your spheres of influence, and your wealth goals. What are those things for yourself? And you asked a very important question. Do you do this independently, or do you do this with your husband if you're married, or your spouse or your partner? And I always feel like unity is very important. If you're on two separate pages with your partner or your husband, it just doesn't work really. Because you're not going to be able to meet many of the goals that you set for yourself, whether that's health and wellness. So unity is important. But if you are a single woman, a divorced woman, or someone who's just dating, then you need to kind of know what your personal aspirations are. But everyone should know what your personal aspirations and your dreams and your goals are, because that drives our direction in life. So one of the things that I did several years ago, and I've done each year, is I've attended a goals conference. And so however you seem to do that for yourself, and there's a lot of programs and whatnot, but that was just something that I did a couple of years ago. And it made me really look at my sphere of influence in my life. Who am I hanging out with? My mindset. Who do I want my influences to be? Write them down and work towards these goals. Because when you start writing things down, you start thinking about it. Your subconscious drives so much of what you do with your personal health. And I'm not talking about, I want to lose 20 pounds. Although that's great and wonderful, it's your why. What is driving you? Is it because it's going to make you healthier? Is it because you can move more, because you can achieve some of the trips or whatnot that you might want to attend? You have more energy to do some of the things that you want to do. So goals and aspirations are super key and important. Yes, if you have a partner, I suggest that you each do that and you come together and you outline and talk about these things. So practically speaking, my husband and I both attended these goals seminars, but we also looked at goals, drilling it down into a financial level. Like, where is it that we could visualize and see ourselves in 10 years? What level of income did we need to replace W-2 income? How do we get from point A to point Z? Who needs to be on our team to help us achieve that? And that is a lot of different pieces there, you know? It's a CPA, it's a legal team. And so you have to kind of get some of this framework in place and talk about where you are, where you want to go, so that you know what it's going to take in between. That in between piece, though, you've got to be willing to do the work. I mean, it takes grit. You know, when the shiny object syndrome wears off, and a year or two down the road, you don't see the needle moving, you need to keep pushing through, because it's after that breakthrough point, you know, that you can see results, stay consistent. You know, I was listening to one of your podcasts earlier this morning. I forget the gentleman's name, but he was talking about blockchain and crypto, and it is so true. Our daily habits affect our results. Our daily habit of our quiet time, prayer, meditation, our daily habit of diet, our daily habit of moving around, our daily habit of setting down a plan of what you're going to achieve for the week. That's what moves the needle, you know? And so it's real important that you do that individually. But if you're in a relationship, it's important that you do that in a relationship, whether that's a personal relationship or a business relationship. It's all the same. You have to be moving in the right direction. I hope that's helpful. You know, I mean, it's practical, really.
Absolutely, absolutely, Robin. In terms of, say, putting money in wherever places one may like to, but how does a person plan what exactly is financial freedom all about, especially in case of women?
Yeah.
uh, how do you know that you have attained that level of freedom? How much money should they target? What should be, because many a times what happens is that some people may need money for their own expenses,
Mhm.
but many a times it is that the husband uh, uh, income is enough, and he or she, they are able to manage things very well. In that situation, how do you look at your financial independence or financial freedom? How do you plan for it and going into the future? Because what it may work differently with different people. How do you put that number to you to that? How do you put that feeling to that? Okay, this is the level that I have crossed.
Okay. So, a couple of very quick answers to that big question there. One, educate yourself. So if your spouse or your husband brings in enough income and you don't really have to worry about these things, it's real important that you educate yourself, your mind, so that you can speak the same language. Because if you're not speaking the same language, if you're not understanding the words and what these words mean for investing and tax strategies, then you haven't earned the right to jump in the conversation and make some recommendations. So educate yourself, whether that's reading books, whether that's attending some seminars, doing some online stuff. There's a lot of information out there. I mean, the internet, follow some YouTube podcast and such. There's so much out there that you can do. But secondly, one of the things that we do is we had a great CPA who was really just wonderful for about 10 years. He would never make any recommendations to us. We would say, maybe we discovered a strategy or a question. He'd say, oh yeah, I can look at that and let's put that in place and see how that might work. So I had to change my CPA. And so I meet with my CPA monthly. Literally, we look at our full schematic on where we are and what style of investments we might need based on our cash flow from investments, W-2 income, bonuses we might anticipate, and where do we need to strategize and look for different styles of investments. And those are co-joined conversations. I am on those calls. Brett is on those calls. Brett is my husband of 30 years, I might like to say. So I want to give Brett Binkley a shout out. So anybody that's been married that long knows that's a journey, and that'd be a whole nother podcast we could talk about. But you know, you have to, again, let's step back to your goals and your unified, you know, idea of what you want your life to look like 3, 5, 10 years down the road. You have to be able to envision that and have that in writing and identify goals, and create vision boards and put that in front of you day in and day out. I mean, I have a vision board, you know, right here, you know, that I do. We have is my personal vision board. We do that with our family in our family office meeting annually. We create vision boards, and everybody's got that plastered in front of them, so we don't forget what our strategy is for the year. And so then let me step back and saying we have these meetings with our CPA. So you've got to find the right CPA, and that's really different for everybody. But your CPA's got to be on the same page that you are. You are looking to replace W-2 income. Your end goal is this. Now, how do I get there in between? And then finally, I would say, when I had mentioned earlier about a legal team, you've got to look at asset mapping, your whole schematic on where you are financially in your life. And this is for somebody that's starting out. This is for someone that's really high level. All of your assets need to be mapped out. What are the business entities that they're in? How does one business affect another business? That really is something that you grow into. You don't start with that. I mean, my 20-year-old is not starting with that. My 20-year-old is starting with, how do I establish credit in my name? You know, that's a basic function that we have to help coach our young people through, because let's face it, they are not taught financial education in school. They are not taught, you know, let's say you're a business major. You're not taught a financial education. You know, that is not an institutional education is not financial education, financial literacy, you know? And so these are things that, you know, we're working on. How do you buy your first home? How do you buy an investment property? What are different ways to create that? So these are things that are basic fundamentals that I talk about a lot, you know, and that can be found on our website. That can be found through some of my Weekend Wealth, I call them like little micro educational bits that I put out weekly that are 60 seconds or less on tangible, practical applications for someone.
Right, Robin. You talk about something called the circle of influence. How can one use this circle of influence to attain financial freedom or independence?
So my circle of influence has morphed over the last couple of years. And so by that, I do not mean discount friends that you've had in your life for 30, 40, 50 years. Everyone in your life has a place, but not all these great friendships are moving in the same direction that you are. Not everyone in your circle cares about growing wealth. They might be really satisfied with where they are, and where they are is enough for them. And that's why everyone needs to identify that for themselves. What does financial freedom mean? What it means to you and me could be two different things, or on the same spectrum, but maybe a little different. So you've got to know that. But through a couple of masterminds that I'm a part of, I surround myself with people who are like-minded, who are reading books. They are on calls. We are actively talking about what's happening in the world, macroeconomics. We're encouraging one another. We are in private Facebook groups. And so this has become my sphere of influence. And so you become like the people that you're hanging out with. So if you're just hanging out with the same folks that you've hung out with for 30, 40 years, and you're just going to happy hour because it's awesome, great. Those people have a space in your life. But are they educating their brain? Are they looking at what's happening in their world? Are they looking at diversifying their portfolio? What might be some great assets to invest in given the state of the world and the US that we're in right now? And so that's what I mean by that. And so there are tremendous women's groups out there, but then, mixed groups also that I'm a part of.
Right,
Yeah.
right, Robin. So, how do people connect with you? What's the best way to learn from you? There's so much to learn from you, Robin. You are doing a lot of work yourself. Achieved a lot of things for yourself. So, and you have this company called Real Equity Investment Partners. So, how can people know more about you? What's the best way to connect with you?
So the best way for folks to reach out to me would be to simply shoot an email to team@realequityip.com. And that will get anyone who's listening today that has any interest in anything I've spoken about to me. And if it's certainly something that I'm not qualified to answer, I will connect you to those people in my life who mentor and shepherd me. But I would love to be able to help you along your journey of creating your path to financial freedom. I'm super committed to that. As I said, I've got 3 adult children, and it is my passion and my life's work at this point to get them to a place where they are independent. And by that, I mean they are off my payroll, but I mean independently making these decisions on investments that are going to set their life up from now for the next 25 plus years. And so I'd love to do that for anyone who's interested that's listening today.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.